I'm Richard Clarke. I record these talks every day as a way to deepen my inquiry. Listen each day and deepen your own practice. Welcome. I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Today is from Talk 571, Part 2. Questioner. If the self is single, if one man is liberated, that means that all souls are liberated. In practice, it is not so. Therefore, Advaita is not correct. Maharshi, the weakness in the argument is that the reflected light of the self is mistaken for the original light of the self. The ego, the world, and the individuals are all due to the person's vasanas. When they perish, that person's hallucinations disappear. That is to say, one picture is broken and the relative reflection is at an end. The fact is that the self is never bound. There can therefore be no release for it. All the troubles are for the ego only. In this dialogue, Sri Ramana Maharshi addresses a question that challenges the idea of non-duality or Advaita. The question suggests that if the self is truly singular, then the liberation of one person would imply the liberation of everyone. Since this doesn't seem to match the reality of lived experience, the questioner argues that Advaita must be incorrect. Ramana points out a fundamental misunderstanding at the heart of this argument. The error lies in mistaking the reflected light of the self, the appearance of individuality and ego, for the original light of the self, which is pure, indivisible, and ever present. This confusion arises from vasanas, or latent tendencies and impressions carried by the mind. These vasanas create the illusion of separation and multiplicity, giving rise to the ego and the perception of a fragmented world. The mind borrows, so to say, the consciousness that is the self, then mistakenly thinks it is separate from it. To clarify, Ramana uses the metaphor of a broken pitcher. Imagine the self as a vast, unchanging light, and the ego is a water-filled pitcher reflecting that light. Each pitcher creates its own reflection, appearing distinct and separate. When a pitcher breaks, symbolizing the dissolution of the ego, the reflection disappears. However, the original light remains unchanged and unaffected. Similarly, when a person's vasanas and egos dissolve through self-inquiry or other spiritual practices, the illusion of individuality vanishes. The self was never bound or dependent on these illusions to begin with. Ramana Maharshi emphasizes that all suffering and struggle belong solely to the ego. not the self. The self is eternally free, untouched by either bondage or liberation. The concept of release applies only to the ego's mistaken identification with the body, mind, and external world. Once this false identification ends, what remains is the realization that the self was never bound in the first place. This teaching invites you to shift your focus from the ego's limited perspective to the truth of your unchanging self. Liberation isn't about the self attaining freedom. It's about recognizing that freedom is your natural state. The struggles and doubts exist only as a part of the ego story. Through self-inquiry, you can see through this illusion and rest in the clarity of your ever-free self. So know yourself and be always free and at peace. In 40 Verses on Reality, Ramana Maharshi explains the nature of the self, the ultimate reality, and self-inquiry. My new book, with my comments and inquiry questions, opens these teachings up and brings them into your practice and experience. Available now from Amazon. Link in the video description. These videos bring Ramana's teachings into your direct experience. Click subscribe to see more. Click thumbs up to like, and send questions and start a dialogue with a comment.